There's a mountain on Earth taller than Everest. Not close in elevation, not comparable in scale, but genuinely, measurably taller. And almost nobody has ever seen its summit because most of it is underwater. That mountain sits in the middle of an ocean so vast that the nearest continent is nearly 4,000 kilometers away, on a chain of islands where astronauts once trained to walk on the moon, where a queen was overthrown by her own subjects, and where a goddess is still, to this day, said to be reshaping the land with fire. If you think you know this place because you have seen a postcard of it, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will understand why that postcard barely scratches the surface. And if strange facts and hidden corners of the world are your thing, this is exactly the kind of place this channel was built to explore. So consider sticking around and subscribing, because we are just getting started. Let's begin with the numbers that don't add up the way you'd expect. Mauna Kea, on the big island of Hawaii, is often left out of the conversation when people list the tallest mountains on the planet. Everest gets the crown because we only measure from sea level, but if you measure from the ocean floor where Mauna Kea actually begins, it rises over 10,000 meters, more than 33,000 feet, making it the tallest mountain on Earth from base to peak. Most of that height is hidden beneath the waves. What you see poking above the water is only the tip of something monumental. And that is just the beginning of how strange this place gets. The entire archipelago was built by volcanoes, layer after layer of cooled lava, stacking up over millions of years, and the result looks less like a tropical paradise and more like another planet entirely. NASA noticed this too. Before the Apollo missions ever left Earth, astronauts trained on the Big Island's volcanic terrain because nothing else on the planet came closer to replicating the surface of the moon. Think about that for a second. Men who would later walk where no human had ever walked prepared for it by walking here first. But this land is not finished forming. Kilauea, one of the volcanoes on the Big Island, is still erupting today, actively reshaping the coastline in real time. New land is being created while you watch this video. That is not a metaphor. It is happening right now. Here is something else most people never realize. When you picture Hawaii, you probably picture one island, maybe two. In reality, the Hawaiian archipelago contains 137 islands. Most are uninhabited specks of rock. Only 8 are considered the main islands, and of those, only 4 draw the overwhelming majority of visitors. Oʻahu, Maui, Kauaʻi, and the Big Island of Hawaii. Molokai and Lanai offer their own distinct, quieter experiences for those who know to look. But 2 islands, Niihau and Kahulawe, are almost completely off limits to the public, sealed away by private ownership and environmental protections. An entire piece of this world exists that you are simply not allowed to enter, and that alone should tell you that Hawaii is far stranger and far more layered than the version sold in travel brochures. Now picture where all of this actually sits on a map. Hawaii is the most isolated populated place on the entire planet, a cluster of islands floating alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, so remote that reaching the nearest coastline, California, requires crossing nearly 2,400 miles, close to 3,862 kilometers of open water. There is no other inhabited land closer. It exists in a kind of geographic solitude that almost nowhere else on Earth can claim. And that isolation shaped everything that happened here, including a history far more dramatic than most people assume. Hawaii was not always part of the United States. It was an independent kingdom with its own monarchy, its own laws, its own sovereignty, until that kingdom was overthrown in 1893. It would take another 66 years until 1959 before Hawaii finally became the 50th and final state admitted to the United States. Before any of that political history, though, the islands were already alive with people. Polynesian explorers, navigating without compasses, without satellites, without any of the tools we take for granted today, sailed across thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean and found these islands somewhere between 800 and 1200 AD. They did this using nothing but the stars, the swells of the ocean, and the flight patterns of birds. It remains one of the most extraordinary feats of navigation in human history. And the culture those explorers built here still echoes through everything Hawaii is known for today, sometimes in ways you would never expect. Surfing, for instance, was born in Hawaii, but it did not start as a beach pastime for tourists. It began as a sacred practice at times reserved exclusively for royalty. Riding the waves was not just recreation, it was status. Even that unmistakable ukulele sound that feels so tied to Hawaiian identity actually arrived from somewhere else entirely, brought over by Portuguese immigrants who introduced a small stringed instrument called the braguinha in the 1800s. Hawaiians transformed it into something new, something that became inseparable from the island's sound. And if you want one final strange detail before we head to the islands themselves, Hawaii's official state fish has a name so long it barely fits in a sentence. Humuhumunukunukuapua, a tongue twister tourister most locals themselves stumble over. Now that you understand the bones of this place, its geology, its isolation, its history, it's time to actually go there, island by island, because each one hides something the others don't. And trust me, it only gets more surprising from here. We start on Oahu, known as the gathering place, and for good reason. This is the island where everything collides: the energy of a modern city, the calm of a legendary beach, and the weight of one of the most significant historical sites in American history. If you wanted a single island that captures the full spectrum of what Hawaii can offer, Oahu would be it. The first place worth understanding here is Diamond Head, a crater that has become one of the most photographed landmarks in the islands. It formed roughly 300,000 years ago through volcanic activity, and today a steep hiking trail leads visitors up to its rim, rewarding them with sweeping views over Waikiki and the endless Pacific beyond. But Diamond Head is not just a scenic overlook. During wartime, it served as a military lookout point, giving this single landmark a dual identity: half natural wonder, half strategic outpost watching over the coastline. From there, the city of Honolulu unfolds as the cultural and economic heart of the islands, a place where urban energy and tropical atmosphere somehow coexist without canceling each other out. Honolulu is home to museums, galleries, and one particularly unique landmark, Iolani Palace, the only royal palace in the entire United States. Think about that. Nowhere else in this country will you find an actual royal residence, a physical reminder that this land was once ruled by a monarchy before it ever became American soil. Just minutes away, Ala Moana Beach Park offers golden sand and calm water, letting visitors move seamlessly between royal history and modern relaxation in the same afternoon. And then there is Waikiki itself, a name that has become almost synonymous with Hawaii worldwide. Long before it was a tourist destination, it was a retreat for Hawaiian royalty. Today it draws surfers of every skill level to its famously gentle, consistent waves, while its streets offer shopping, dining, hula performances, and traditional ceremonies. It is, in many ways, the most concentrated expression of island luxury and island tradition existing side by side. But if you want to see Hawaii's marine life up close, you need to head to Hanauma Bay, a protected marine sanctuary formed inside the remains of a volcanic cone. The water here is remarkably clear, home to vibrant coral reefs, colorful fish, and, if you're fortunate, sea turtles gliding just beneath the surface. Strict conservation rules protect this fragile ecosystem, and visitors are encouraged to learn about marine life at an on-site education center before ever entering the water. It is one of the few places on Oahu where the ocean itself becomes the main attraction, rather than the sand beside it. Inland, Kualoa Ranch tells a completely different story, one that has quietly shaped global pop culture. This 4,000-acre nature reserve and working cattle ranch is filled with dramatic valleys, towering cliffs, and dense forest, earning it the nickname the backlot of Hawaii. Blockbuster films like Jurassic Park and King Kong were shot here, and fans of the television series Lost will recognize its landscapes instantly, since much of the show was filmed on these very grounds. Visitors can explore it by ATV, zipline, or horseback, immersing themselves in scenery that has appeared on screens around the world without most viewers ever realizing where it actually was. Just off Oahu's coast sits a small island most people know by a nickname rather than its real name. Locals call it Chinaman's Hat because of its distinctive shape, though its proper name is Maui. It can be reached by kayak or, during low tide, by simply walking across the exposed sandbar. A short hike to its summit rewards visitors with rugged coastal views, but the island's real intrigue lies in its legend. According to local myth, Makoli'i is what remains of a giant lizard's tail, severed and left behind, turning a simple offshore islet into a piece of living mythology. Not everything on Oahu is about adventure or myth, though. Some of it demands stillness. Pearl Harbor stands as one of the most solemn places in the islands, the site of the surprise attack on December 7, 1941, that pulled the United States into World War II. Today, memorials and museums preserve that history, and the USS Arizona Memorial floats directly above the sunken battleship beneath it, honoring those who lost their lives that day. It is a place where history is not just remembered, it is felt. And nestled at the base of the Koolau Mountains, far from the crowds, sits the Valley of the Temples Memorial Park, home to the Byodo-in Temple, a stunning replica of a 950-year-old temple in Japan. Surrounded by koi ponds, lush gardens, and towering peaks, this is a place built for reflection. Visitors can ring the massive temple bell for good luck, a small act that somehow feels significant in a place this quiet and this beautiful. That is Oahu, a single island holding city life, royal history, war memory, myth, and marine wonder all at once. But if you thought that was intense, wait until we reach the Big Island, because this is where Hawaii stops feeling like a destination and starts feeling like the edge of the world. The Big Island of Hawaii earns its nickname the Island of Adventure, honestly. This is the youngest island in the chain geologically, and it shows because the forces that built every other island in Hawaii are still actively at work here right now in front of anyone willing to watch. At the center of that is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to two of the most active volcanoes on the planet, Kilauea and Mauna Loa. Visitors can walk through volcanic craters, descend into lava tubes, and hike through lush rainforest, all within the same park, all shaped by molten rock that continues to flow and reshape the coastline as it has for millennia. To native Hawaiians, this is not just a geological curiosity. Kilauea is considered the home of Pele, the volcano goddess, and the eruptions themselves are understood as expressions of her presence. Science and spirituality meet here in a way that few places on Earth can claim. Rising above all of it is Mauna Kea, the same mountain we talked about at the start of this video, the one that is technically taller than Everest when measured from its true base. Its summit sits nearly 14,000 feet above sea level, and because the surrounding air is so clear and so free of light pollution, it has become home to some of the most advanced observatories on the planet. Visitors can tour these facilities or join stargazing tours that reveal a night sky most people will never see anywhere else in their lives. And here's the detail that catches almost everyone off guard. In winter, the summit of this tropical island mountain can actually be covered in snow, creating a surreal contrast with the beaches far below, palm trees and warm sand just a couple of hours' drive from snowfall. Further inland lies Waipio Valley, known as the Valley of the Kings, a lush remote landscape once home to Hawaiian royalty. Surrounded by towering cliffs and cascading waterfalls, it can be explored on foot, by horseback, or through guided tours that dive into its deep historical and cultural significance. It feels less like a tourist stop and more like stepping directly into the past. And speaking of waterfalls, Akaka Falls State Park houses one of the most breathtaking cascades in all of Hawaii. Akaka Falls itself drops 442 feet into a lush green gorge, framed by tropical foliage and bamboo groves. A short scenic loop trail winds through the surrounding rainforest, offering views of both Akaka Falls and the smaller, quieter Kahuna Falls nearby. It is one of those places that feels almost too cinematic to be real. Then the landscape shifts entirely. At Punalu, one of Hawaii's most famous black sand beaches, the ground itself tells the story of the island's violent volcanic origins. The sand here formed from lava fragments, cooled and shattered by contact with the ocean, creating a striking contrast between jet black shoreline and turquoise water. Endangered Hawaiian green sea turtles are frequently spotted basking right on the sand, and while the water is excellent for snorkeling, it tends to run cooler than expected, since fresh water seeping in from underground mixes with the ocean here. But if you think a black sand beach is unusual, Papakolea Green Sand Beach takes things even further. This is one of only 4 green sand beaches on the entire planet, and its color comes from olivine, a mineral embedded in the surrounding volcanic rock. Reaching it is its own kind of adventure, a 2.5 mile hike or a rough ride in a four-wheel drive vehicle across exposed terrain. But the payoff, emerald-colored sand framed by dramatic cliffs, is unlike anything most travelers will ever witness in their lifetime. The Big Island also holds places of deep cultural weight. Puhonua Ohonaunau was once a sacred place of refuge in ancient Hawaiian society, where those who had broken sacred laws, known as kapu, could flee to escape punishment. Today it stands preserved as a national historical park, offering a rare, tangible connection to the values and traditions of early Hawaiian life. Nearby, Lapakahi State Historical Park preserves the remains of an ancient Hawaiian fishing village along the Kohala coast, complete with stone structures, fish ponds, and coastal trails, each marked with interpretive signage explaining how Hawaiians once lived in careful balance with the land and the sea surrounding them. If the Big Island feels like standing at the edge of creation itself, Maui offers something gentler, though no less spectacular, and it is here that this story is about to take an unexpected turn. Maui is known as the Valley Isle, and while it is smaller than the Big Island, it somehow manages to pack in an almost overwhelming variety of landscapes and experiences, blending luxury resorts and thrilling outdoor adventure with pockets of quiet, untouched nature. At its heart lies Haleakala National Park, home to Maui's dormant volcano, whose summit rises more than 10,000 feet above sea level. Watching the sunrise from that peak has become something close to a rite of passage for visitors, an experience so surreal that the sun appears to rise directly out of a rolling sea of clouds beneath you. The barren, almost lunar landscape at the summit contrasts sharply with Maui's lush coastline far below, and for those willing to hike into the crater or bike down its winding slopes, it becomes an entirely different kind of adventure, one that makes you feel like you have genuinely left the planet for a while. At the end of the Pipiwai Trail within that same national park, Waimoku Falls delivers one of Maui's most spectacular sights, a 400-foot cascade pouring down a sheer wall of lava rock into a calm pool below. The hike to reach it is an experience in itself, winding through dense bamboo groves, past ancient banyan trees, and across several smaller waterfalls along the way. It is a moderately challenging trail, but almost everyone who completes it agrees it is worth every step. No conversation about Maui is complete without the road to Hana, a drive so iconic it has become a destination in its own right. This scenic 64-mile route winds through lush rainforest, past waterfalls and dramatic ocean views, and along the way it forces you through more than 600 hairpin turns and across nearly 50 bridges. Stops like Twin Falls and Wailoa Falls, along with hidden black sand beaches, punctuate the journey, turning a simple drive into a slow, immersive exploration of Maui's untouched eastern coastline. And on Maui's north shore, Nakalele Blowhole offers something far more violent and immediate. Ocean waves force seawater through a narrow hole in volcanic rock, launching a geyser-like spray into the air, most dramatic at high tide. Surrounded by jagged, unusual rock formations, this off-the-beaten-path spot captures Maui's raw, more rugged side, a sharp contrast to the island's more polished, resort-lined shores. We've covered fire, we've covered altitude, we've covered myth, but there is one island left, and it holds something entirely different from everything you've heard so far. Something older, greener, and in many ways, quieter than any of the islands before it. Kauaʻi is the oldest island in the entire Hawaiian chain, and it feels like it. Nicknamed the Garden Isle, it is defined by deep green valleys, cascading waterfalls, and a slower, more peaceful rhythm than its neighbors. For travelers seeking genuine relaxation rather than nonstop adventure, Kauaʻi tends to be the answer. Its crown jewel is the Napali Coast, one of the most breathtaking landscapes anywhere in Hawaii. Towering cliffs, lush green valleys, and dramatic sea caves stretch along 17 miles of Kauai's northwest shoreline. It can be reached by boat, by helicopter, or by tackling the demanding Kalalau Trail on foot. And however you choose to experience it, the reward is the same: sweeping panoramic views and frequent sightings of dolphins, sea turtles, and whales moving through the water below the cliffs. Inland, Waimea Canyon has earned the nickname the Grand Canyon of the Pacific, and once you see it, that comparison makes perfect sense. This geological marvel stretches 14 miles long and plunges more than 3,000 feet deep, its vivid red and orange cliffs contrasting against green vegetation and scattered waterfalls. Numerous lookout points along the rim offer sweeping views across the canyon, while hiking trails lead down into its depths for those who want a closer, more intimate look at its layered, rugged terrain. And finally, just outside Lihu, Wailoa Falls delivers one of Kauai's most photographed sights, a striking twin waterfall plunging 80 feet into a pool below. It is easily accessible by car, making it one of the more approachable stops on the island, yet visually it rivals far more remote destinations. Early risers are sometimes rewarded with rainbows forming in the mist rising off the falls. And here, finally, we arrive at the answer to something we mentioned earlier without explaining it. Remember surfing, born as a sacred practice tied to bravery and status? Wailua Falls carries its own version of that same spirit. According to Hawaiian legend, this was a place where warriors once proved their courage by leaping from the very top of the falls into the pool below. From ancient surfers proving themselves on the waves to warriors proving themselves in freefall, the thread connecting all of these islands becomes clear. This has always been a place where nature and human courage are tested against each other, again and again across centuries. And that, in the end, is what makes Hawaii so different from the version most people carry in their heads. It is not simply beaches and sunsets. It is the tallest mountain on earth hidden beneath the ocean. It is a kingdom that once stood independent before becoming the 50th state. It is a goddess still shaping land with fire while astronauts once trained nearby for the moon. It is warriors leaping from waterfalls and navigators crossing thousands of miles guided only by stars. Every beach, every crater, every waterfall we walk through today is a fragment of a much larger, much stranger story, one most travelers never stop to notice. If this journey opened your eyes to a side of Hawaii you never knew existed, let us know in the comments which island you would explore first, and check out the next video on this channel because there are other corners of this planet hiding stories just as extraordinary as this one.